We're going to get started now. Before we do get started, there is some room along the edge. Unfortunately, there's just standing room. I'm going to ask that nobody sit in the aisle here. You guys are fine back there, but I'm going to be walking up with some of the birds, not all of them, because some of them do get nervous with people behind them. But the birds do get nervous if someone goes running past them. So once we start the program with the birds, I just ask that no one walk in the front here. If you need to leave in the middle, I won't be too insulted. I might cry a little. No. Feel free to walk around the back. Please don't walk in the front here because we don't want to bother the birds. Welcome. I hope everyone's enjoying the festival today. It's a beautiful day out there. I remember a couple years ago I actually avoided the snowstorm by staying home for the festival. But I missed that year and I really miss coming down here. I love coming to Jamestown Audubon. Make sure you guys come and visit often. They have a lot of programs going on throughout the year. And by the way, my name is Paul. I'm the senior naturalist for the Buffalo Audubon Society, so I'm going to plug Buffalo Audubon also. If you go to beavermeadow.com or buffaloaudubon.com, we have an extensive schedule throughout here also. We have hikes all over western New York, not down this far, but some fairly close. So come and join me once in a while on some of our hikes this year. I also started several years ago an organization called Wild Spirit Rehab and Release Center. We're a nonprofit organization that mostly did wildlife rehabilitation and a little bit of the environmental education programs. We would take some of our non-releasable birds and we bring them out to schools, scout groups. Sometimes we were at malls, at displays, we were at festivals. And the organization grew very rapidly thanks to the great volunteers, including my friends here, Steve Dioia, who has been with us since the start and helped Wild Spirit grow. Wild Spirit shifted gears a few years ago, mostly because of time constraints. My job got so busy that I wasn't able to do as much rehabilitation. So now I do very limited rehabilitation, but I have trained some really good rehabilitators in my area, so I pass everything off to them. And now Wild Spirit centers more on the environmental education. And we do programs like we're going to do today. So that's a little bit about our background here. We're going to be talking about birds today, and not just any type of bird, but these are special birds. What most people consider raptors, and I don't mean a dinosaur. And by raptors, I mean birds of prey. These are birds that actually hunt other animals, sometimes other birds, sometimes mice, sometimes rabbits. Now, because they are carnivores or meat eaters, these guys have to actually have special tools or adaptations to help them catch their food, kill their food, and then eat their food. We're going to pick on red-tailed hawks today. And let's say you're a red-tailed hawk, you're soaring around in the sky and you see a rabbit on the ground. How are you going to go and catch that rabbit? Well, obviously you're going to fly down, but how are you going to physically catch that rabbit? Any guesses? A rabbit trap? Oh. Okay, grab it with your claws. Now, I do believe I have some feet around here. Yes, I do. This is from a great horned owl, and this one's from a red-tailed hawk. Now, they do swoop down and they grab that rabbit, but not with their claws. You see, birds of prey don't have claws. Oh, wait a minute. What are these black things here? No, they look like claws. They look just like my dog's claws, only a little bit longer and a little bit sharper. But these are actually called, thank you, talons. There is a difference between claws and talons. You see, claws are made of keratin, same things our fingernails are made of. They can break easily. Yet, talons are made of keratin with bone inside. That's why this great horned owl has one of the talons that's brown, and the others are black. The black part is the keratin sheath. Inside is bone, which makes them harder and stronger. Now, once this guy catches, how is he going to kill that rabbit? A little louder. You're right. He squeezes with the talons. That's what you're thinking, right? He shakes those talons and he squeezes really tight. These are very sharp. They're like tiny little knives that dig down deep in the animal. And actually, most birds of prey will pulse with the talons. And that digs them in even deeper. Now, once they've killed their prey, before I get to eating the prey, I'm going to pass these around. Please be careful. I don't want anyone getting hurt. They are very sharp. Start this one right over here. Pass that around. We'll start this one way in the back. We'll start this one right here. You guys can take it right down the line. Okay, so once this red-tailed hawk swooped down, he grabbed the rabbit, he squeezed tight, he killed that rabbit. Now it's time to eat the rabbit. Do you think he's going to pick up that rabbit and just cram it in his mouth? No, you guys wouldn't do that with the Thanksgiving turkey, right? Oh, this guy in the back is saying, yeah, I would. No, you would actually cut in small pieces that you don't choke on it. Now, obviously, a bird of prey doesn't have a fork and knife hidden in his back pocket. They don't have teeth to rip their meat. So how are they going to tear that meat in small pieces so that they don't choke on it? With their beaks, you're correct. All birds of prey have a very sharp, pointed, curved beak. That curved beak helps them rip and tear the meat in small pieces. This is actually a bald eagle skull, not a real one. It's just a model of one. But it demonstrates how all of the birds of prey, whether it's a hawk, an owl, an eagle, a falcon, they all have that beak that curves down. That's for ripping and tearing. So all birds of prey have those two main tools that help them catch, kill, and eat their prey. Talons for catching and killing, the beak for ripping and tearing. Now, smaller birds of prey also use the beak for killing. Now, before we bring our friends out here, we did bring some friends with us today. I want to mention that these are not our pets. These are wild animals, and they belong in the wild, but unfortunately, because these birds were injured, they cannot hunt anymore. They wouldn't survive in the wild. So, therefore, if we let them go, they would starve. They would die out there. That's the only reason that we have them. We have special licenses and permits from U.S. Fish and Wildlife and DEC to have, well, not just the birds, but even the feathers. Okay, they're all protected by law. Ever since Harry Potter came out, everyone thinks, oh, I want a pet owl. You can't have one, okay? You have to have the right licenses for them. So these guys, if they were able to be in the wild, that's exactly where they would be, where they belong, out there. Got it here. We're going to start out.
Dee, can you please come to the front desk? Dee, to the front desk.
We're going to start out with one of the smallest birds of prey in western New York, but he's also one of the most common birds of prey. This little bird here is what we call an American kestrel. Now, the kestrel got the nickname the sparrowhawk. Really bad nickname. And the reason I say that is because this is not a hawk at all. You see, many years ago, someone would watch a bird, and all of a sudden they would come flying down, grab a bird out of from their feeders, maybe a sparrow, and they'd say, okay, it's daytime, it's got to be a hawk. I mean, you only have hawks and owls. Owls are out at nighttime, hawks are out during the day. So if this guy would come flying down, grab a sparrow, and they'd say, okay, it's a sparrowhawk. Now, it's not actually a hawk, it's a type of falcon. There is a difference between hawks and falcons, and it has nothing to do with size. There are some falcons that are larger than some hawks. And what it has to do with is the way they're built to hunt. They will actually hunt with speed. Most hawks, not all hawks, but most hawks are built for strength. They're very strong birds. They hit their prey with force. I'm going to come walking right through there. Okay. That's awesome. Thank you. So this bird here actually hunts with speed. Does anyone know the fastest bird on the planet? No, it's not the American kestrel, but you're close. It's a type of falcon. The peregrine falcon. The peregrine falcon has actually been clocked at speeds over 200 miles an hour. Now, that's not when they're flapping their wings across the sky. That's in a dive. You see, these birds, when they're after their prey, they're built aerodynamic. They hold their wings up tight on their backs. They dive down at those top speeds. They once put a speed gun on one and clocked a peregrine at 214 miles an hour. That's pretty quick. Now, this little bird here can only go about 100 miles an hour, maybe a little bit faster than that. So they're not as fast as the peregrine, but they are still built for speed. Now, when this guy's hunting, he's very unique in the way he hunts. He actually hovers. He'll go up in the sky. Better watch out, you don't want the bird pooping out of your head. So, right here. Here's the bird. Now, when this guy's hunting, he will actually hover. He'll go up in the sky, he flaps his wings really fast, just holding in one spot. Now, sometimes he may lose altitude, and then he flaps his wings really fast again. The whole time he's watching the sky, he's watching the ground. Once he sees movement, like that bird flying by or maybe a mouse on the ground, that's when he takes his wings, folds them up tight on his back, and does those dives at top speed. Now, if he's after a bird, he will grab it with the talons, grab onto the back. Sometimes I saw peregrine hunting once. The bird basically exploded that he hit. That's how fast they're going. But when they hit that bird, they grab with the talons. Those talons are very weak. They cannot kill with the talons. They take the beak, they grab the neck, and they snap the neck. Snap in the spinal cord. It's a quick and humane death. They have a notch. All falcons have a notch on their beak to help hold that beak or help hold the neck in place when they're snapping it. So they're very efficient hunters, all falcons. Now, let's say you see a small bird with a curved beak out in the wild, and you wonder, is that a hawk or is that a falcon? There are some small hawks out there. Look for what we call the Fu Manchu mustache, those black stripes coming down from the eyes. All falcons have those. In our areas, we have the kestrel falcon, which is the smallest, most colorful. We also have a Merlin falcon, a little bit taller than this guy. We do have peregrine falcons living in the cities, like Buffalo, Rochester, Olean. But we also have deer falcons, which are more of a woodland falcon. So there are several falcons, and all of them have that black stripe under the eye. Anyone know why they have that black stripe? I guess no one's going to watch the Super Bowl tomorrow because we have no football fans. What do you think? That's right. Tomorrow when you're watching the Super Bowl, all the guys are going to have that black stuff under their eyes, and that's to block the glare. Okay, when the sun is hitting their faces and it hits their cheek, it's going to shine up in their eyes and cause a glare. These guys, when they're hunting, they're diving down at those top speeds. They don't want to have a sudden flash of light glare in their eyes, and then they lose what they're after. So that actually blocks the sun. Now, this is actually a female. How do I know that? By color. It's kind of like a songbird. Most songbirds. With most songbirds, the female is more colorful than the male is more colorful than the female. This is a female. She has rusty red wings. She's got a little bit of red on the head, a little bit of blue, and she's got the splotchy belly. Now, if this was a male, he would have bright blue wings, more blue on the head, and the chest would be mostly white in color. So that's how you tell the difference between the two. Now, this is the most common bird of prey in North America, and everyone in this room has seen one, right? Yeah. I'm not seeing everyone shaking their heads. Okay, you probably didn't realize it, but you have seen them. Watch the phone lines. On your way home from the festival today, watch the telephone wires. Lots of birds like to sit up there. If you see a bird sitting on the phone line all alone, remember these guys eat other birds. They don't have a lot of friends. Watch the tail. The tail bobs up and down, real quick bobs like this. If you see that, you're probably seeing a kestrel. Look for the blue wings or the red wings, and then you can tell whether it's a male or a female. They like to hang out mostly by open fields. That's where all the good songbirds and the mice are. On occasion, they will also eat insects. Now, the kestrel makes kind of a key noise, and my batteries are running low, but I hope you can hear this. So if you hear that sound, you're hearing a kestrel in the area. Now you may wonder, well, This bird looks very healthy. She just spread her wings and flapped them. Obviously doesn't have a broken wing. Why not let her go in the wild? And to be honest with you, she is fully flighted. We could let her go in the wild, but the problem is someone would shoot her. What do you mean someone would shoot her? No one would shoot a beautiful bird like this. It's illegal. Well, actually, eventually the DEC would have to be called in. They would have to capture the bird and destroy it. The reason I say that is because this bird is imprinted. You see, someone gave me a call this past spring, and they told me that they found a bird. It fell out of the nest. It was a baby hawk. I went over to their house to get the baby hawk, discovering it was a falcon. It was the kestrel, and it wasn't really young. It didn't have all the downy feathers. It actually had a lot of its adult feathers already. When I questioned the lady thoroughly, because I knew she had it longer than just a couple of hours, she apparently finally fessed up, and she said that she had it for a couple of weeks. She was feeding it raw hamburger, which is not a balanced diet. The bird was gradually getting weaker because it didn't have the nutrition it needed. I took it home with me and got it nice and fattened up, got it healthy, but unfortunately, because this woman got it as a baby, first thing it did when it opened its eyes, it saw this lady and said, "You must be my mother." This bird doesn't think it's a bird, it thinks it's one of us. It thinks it's a human. And that's what we call imprinted. If we release this bird, it would constantly be going down to people, landing on their shoulders. She does that to me all the time. When I enter her cage, she'll fly over, land on my head sometimes, on my shoulder. If she was doing that to you, you'd think something's wrong with that bird. You would get startled, especially being a bird with a sharp pair of teeth. Eventually, the DEC would be called in. They would have to capture and destroy the bird. So that's why she cannot go back to the wild. She thinks she's one of us. Are there any questions about the kestrel? Steve's going to bring out and talk about the next bird. The next bird is actually one of the most common birds in our area. Oh, by the way, while he's bringing them out, the kestrel's numbers have gone down in recent years, and Buffalo Audubon and Jamestown Audubon jumped on board with Audubon New York. We are giving programs and building kestrel boxes to get their numbers back. Anybody know what this is?
Red-tailed hawk.
I heard a hawk, and I heard the proper, it's a red-tailed hawk.
Wow.
This is my buddy Orion. Ryan has a personality that, unfortunately, for short programs, it's not too good. He likes to flap around, get a little bit comfortable for about 5-10 minutes, and then when we do long programs, he's the most perfect bird in the world. Short programs, not so good, because by the time I get done talking, he's back in his carrier. He is a red-tailed hawk. These are very common around here. You see them along the thruway, up on the telephone poles. You see them over in farmlands. You see them all over the place. These were commonly known as chicken hawks, because those that had chickens back in when you had your own farm and you prepared food for yourself and had to raise your own food, these guys would come down because a chicken's a bird. This is what I hunt. I don't know what's your dinner, so they would rob the chickens from the coops, and they got the name as chicken hawk. Red-tailed hawks are common across North America. They all don't look like this guy. Our red-tailed hawks from this area vary greatly from the red-tailed hawks that live in the desert. The ones that live in the desert are very tan. There's also an all-chocolate bird that used to be called the Harlan's hawk, until they figured out that it's not a different hawk. It's just a different type or a subspecies of the red-tailed hawk. And so it was renamed the red-tailed hawk, and it's an all-chocolate bird. This bird is a little bit different than the ones we see around here. This one came from the Adirondacks. The reason it came from the Adirondacks was, well, one, it was hit by a car. Getting hit by a car is fairly common for birds of prey. And we were at the peak of rehabbing. When we were at the peak of rehabbing, about half of the birds of prey that came in were car injuries. The reason being, they are extremely good hunters.
However, the success rate is probably about 30%. The best hunter on the face of the planet is the cheetah, which is the second fastest animal on the planet, because the peregrine is the first. At 200, the cheetah's at about 70 miles per hour. They do about 70% success rate. These guys are only about 30% success rate. So let me ask you, if you went to Wegmans and only got food 30% of the time, would you be focused when you were walking in Wegmans about food? Yes. Same thing with these guys. They get very focused. Plus the fact that we're sitting on the telephone pole all day long and a car driving by, and never once has a car ever gone up the telephone pole and attacked them. So they don't know the cars are bad. So with that and that focus, they see something running across the road, they're going after it. And that's what their attention is on. And they do not see the car coming at them, and they get hit. This guy was hit, he broke his wing, he broke his keel bone. Keel bone is strong bone coming out of their chest, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. His wings. If you're looking at this guy right now, you would say his wings look perfect. The way he's flattened them, it healed very good. There is a slight droop to the wing closest to me, but his wing healed beautifully. If that had been his own injury, his only injury, he'd be back out in the wild. Unfortunately, when he broke his keel bone, he did damage to his flight muscles. There is no muscle in his wings. All of the muscle to control flight and to give him the power of flight is in his chest, and it's attached to that keel bone. A couple of reasons why. If he had muscle in his wings, he'd be a much heavier bird, wouldn't be able to fly. But also, nature put all the muscles in the middle, gives him great center of balance, or center of gravity, so he has great balance and great control when he's on flight. When he damaged his keel bone, he did soft tissue damage to his muscles and the ligaments attaching those muscles. They scarred over and they atrophied, so he's a very weak flyer, although as he keeps flapping his wings, it doesn't look like he's weak. However, he is. When he's on the ground, he can only get up about 3 feet off the ground. Not very good if you want to hunt rabbits or snakes or anything else. And he can only fly short distances. He could probably fly from me to Paul, and then he'd be very tired. And that's not very good when you're hunting a rabbit that's very fast, or a snake that's fast, or mice, or birds, or woodchucks. These are all things that this guy eats. So he was in the Adirondacks. The rehabber up at the Adirondacks tried to say, well, I can't release him. I want to use him as an educational bird. He did not like her. He was a very nasty bird, very mean bird. She tried for about a year, contacted us, and said, you guys have a shot. I'm done with him. He came in, and he was a very nasty, mean bird. We worked with him for about 3 months and got to the point where she couldn't do this to him. This is important because we have to keep checking to see if he's eating right. She couldn't check his feet. This is important because we have to check for diseases. Wasn't she did anything wrong? It was the fact that when she was rehabbing him, he remembered that pain that he had, the injury was associated to her also. Came to us, we fed him, kept him happy, said, hey, these guys aren't too bad, I can take that. So there was nothing she was doing wrong, it's just that association. The thing that's a little bit different because he's from the Adirondacks, and these guys do vary across the nation. If you look up in his beak area, you can see that. I know way in the back you probably can't, but it's very light blue. There's a blue shade to it. The birds around in our area, bright yellow. He's got a lot of rust, very dark in his chest area. Very dark band here. Our birds around here, very white. They have some speckling, but they are very pure white underneath. His tail is a little bit more red or maroon color than the birds around here too. They're a little bit more on the lighter or brighter red. Just different coloring. So when you're out there and you see a very white-breasted bird, you're going to be like, well, that's not the bird I saw flapping off of Steve's arm. It's the same bird, just different coloring. Red-tailed hawks, the other thing. You may see birds flying around and you'd say, wait a minute. The bird that was flapping off of Steve's arm had brown eyes and a red tail, but I see this bird that has yellow eyes and a brown tail. Can't be a red-tailed hawk. Well, it is a red-tailed hawk. It's a first-year red-tailed hawk. In their first year, their eyes are yellow, their tail is brown. As they molt and change after that first year, because all birds will go through a yearly molt to repair the damaged feathers, or replace all those damaged feathers, they molt them out. And as the new feathers come in after that first year, the red tail comes in, and the eye will change from yellow to brown. Now the neat thing about molting is, if I were to molt and I was a bird and I molted all of one side, doesn't mean that I can fly very well. So they molt symmetrically. So if I lose one tail feather on one side, the tail feather on the other side will drop off too, to keep me in balance so I can maintain my flight. Any questions about the red tail?
I just have a question on the birds. They live with that?
They don't live
We don't let them fly around their houses.
No, they're outside in enclosures. Outside, big enclosures.
They live in a separate building from your home?
Yes, yes. These are not pets. They don't make good pets.
Some local farmers donated old metal corn cribs to us. We have 2 corn cribs for our red-tailed hawks, 1 for our barred owl. We have other cages. We're in my backyard right now. I have 12 acres in arcade. We have cages out of that. We're hoping this summer to move them over to Beaver Meadow Nature Center. See if we can get funding over there to build the cages over there.
Sound. Yes, the sound. One second.
How about your vision compared to ours?
Okay, we'll get to those questions in 1 second. The other thing that I want to do is the sound. If I can find it on here.
Which birds were
Let's see.
Jeff, could you please come to the front desk? Jeff, to the front desk.
I don't know if you can hear that.
I was saying I knew.
Yeah, that's the common sound that you hear on movies, especially when an eagle's flying by, when turkey vultures are overhead. Well, unfortunately, the bald eagle, our great symbol of national strength, it sounds like a seagull or a chicken when it calls. Not very majestic. Turkey vultures, they basically kind of give a hissy grunt, if anything. So not really good for moviegoers. So the people in Hollywood say, oh, that's the most majestic sound. So they play that all the time. That's the sound of the red-tailed hawk. As far as what do we feed them mice. We get mice somewhat donated to us, and we get them by the bucket load. We freeze them, we crawl them out, and then we give them dead mice, which they will eat. Birds of prey are also birds of opportunistic food. They don't have to have live food. It takes a lot of power for this guy to fly. Unlike the falcons or whatever, which are built for speed, he's built for power. That's why they're perched up very high. What they do is they use the high perch and they swoop down and use gravity to help them. That's why when they're migrating, they do the soaring. You see them catching thermals. It's going very high, but what they're doing is they're catching a thermal. It gets them very, very high, and then when they're up there, and this will give you a hint about their eyesight, at about a quarter of a mile away, they will see dust and leaf matter being raised by the next thermal. And they go, aha, I want to head over there, I'm going to go over there. And as they fly to the next thermal, they lose altitude. They will catch that next thermal, rise back up, and then drift off to the next thermal. And that's how they can go great distance, because again, it takes a lot of power. These guys are like 747s getting off the ground. Unlike a little Falcon or 7, they can bolt off the ground. So their eyesight is extremely well. It's said that what we see at 10 feet looks like they can see comparatively 100 feet. So their eyesight is very good. You can see their eyes are also a little bit to the side. They're not forward focused like ours, so they have a little bit more of a peripheral vision, a little bit more, less stereo vision in the front. So they can see quite a bit going around. You see his head following my hand all over. Yeah, he watches my hand all the time. He's like, what are you doing with that? What are you doing with that? And we just do a little tap to make sure he knows it's okay. When do these guys hunt? Daytime, they have the day shift. None of them hunt, hawks do not hunt at nighttime. They know they have the day shift. When they meet up with the night shift, there's sometimes a little bit of a battle. They don't like each other, even though they will share the same territory. This guy shares the same territory with great horned owls. So if the shifts cross over a little bit, there will be a fight. Who wins depends on who's got the upper hand at that time. But for the most part, they live okay with one another because he's got the day shift, Al's got the night shift. And that's what we're going to bring out next. We're going to bring out the night shift. Yes. Real loud. Any other bird that likes? He asked if there's any other bird besides the owl that's nocturnal, and the answer is yes. There are other birds out there. Some birds actually do a lot of their flying at nighttime because they feel safer at night. There's not too many predators out there. There's the nighthawk or the night jar. They are out at nighttime. Well, the birds are out at night. Night jars, that's basically it. That's mostly it. Your birds will migrate though. Like the Canadian geese, migratory birds, when they migrate, they'll feed during the day, they'll fly at night. And it's believed part of the reason they do that is because of star positioning and everything else, they can navigate by the stars. Don't know if that's really true, but that's one of the theories. But most of them migrate during the night.
Might go to the
and it's also safer. You don't have all your predators out at nighttime.
I don't know what Steve's problem is with these birds, but look how incredible they are. I give him all the tough ones. This is one of our nocturnal birds. For those of you who are not familiar with the term nocturnal, it means animals that hunt at night, are awake at night, and then during the daytime is when they're asleep, most of the time. This is an owl. Not all owls are nocturnal, although most are. We're going to introduce you to one of our diurnal owls in a few minutes, a daytime owl, but most of them are nocturnal. Now this is what we call a barred owl, and he gets the name barred owl because if you look at his chest and belly, he's got stripes or bars. That's where he got the name barred owl. Now in western New York, there are 7 species of resident owl. They include the smallest in this area, the saw-whet, screech owl, short-eared owl, long-eared owl, barn owl, barred owl, then the great horned owl. So those are 7 resident species of owls. Now being a nocturnal owl, or a nocturnal bird, you need some extra special tools to help you hunt at nighttime. When it's dark, you don't want to be out there trying to find your food. Thank you. You don't want to be out there trying to find your food and not be able to see it. And that's why owls have such large eyes. Now you may be looking at this guy thinking, well, wait a minute, his eyes don't look that big. They don't look much bigger than yours. But in truth, his eyes are much bigger than mine. You see, they're shaped different than mine are. His eyes are not round shaped like mine. Mine are like marbles and like yours and most animals. I can turn them from side to side of my head. This guy cannot. His eyes are cone shaped. It's like taking a piece of paper, rolling it up and cramming it back in his head. His eyes actually get larger as they go back in his head. His eyes are so big there's no room for muscle, no room for movement. He's always stuck looking straight forward. That's great to see in the dark. Not so good if you want to watch that mouse walking around behind you. How are you going to watch the mouse if you can't turn your eyes? I know you can turn your body, but when you turn your body, the mouse sees movement, and he doesn't want to be your dinner. He's going to obviously head for home. What do you think? He's going to turn his head, right? Can an owl turn his head all the way around? Okay, how many say yes they can? How many say no they can't? I'm going to say I'm too afraid to raise my hand. Okay, you've got some honesty. Some of you didn't raise your hand for any of those. But I'll tell you the truth, an owl cannot turn their head all the way around. They can go much further than most animals. See, this guy can turn his head about 270 degrees, or about 3/4 of the way around. So starting in the front, he can go all the way to the back and a little bit further, but cannot complete the circle. You see, in our necks, we have 7 bones, vertebrae, that help us go up and down, left and right. This guy has 14 bones in his neck, twice as many as us. That gives him that extra motion. Now, his eyes are also designed in a different way besides shape. You see, in an eye, there's rods and cones, and Steve's going to correct me because I was getting it wrong. Have you ever noticed when you go out at nighttime, you're watching the stars, and all of a sudden you see a really faint star over here, when you look at it, it disappears? You ever notice that when you look away, it's there again? That's because the eye is made up of rods and cones. Rods are Rods are what help you see dim lights. And we have more rods on the outside of our eye and the cones on the inside of our eye. An owl has rods and cones throughout the entire eye. So they don't have to look away to see that dim star. They can see it really well by looking straight at it. Now, obviously, these guys care less about looking at the stars. They're looking for food at nighttime. Now, they're also listening for food. If it's a really dark night, lots of clouds in the sky, no moon, no stars, it's pitch black out there. Even an owl has some trouble finding their food. So these guys depend more on their hearing at that time. You guys spotted his ears? No, you can't. No, they're hidden. His ears are actually located just behind his eye, right about there. And it's just a hole in the side of his head. He doesn't have neat funnels like we do to draw the sound into his ears. He has what we call a facial disc to help do that. Right around his eyes, you'll notice it looks like a heart shape. That's his facial disc. The way the feathers are designed there, it actually draws the sound back to his ear. Now, another unique thing about his ears is one's lower than the other. Now, I used to ask if anyone here had one ear lower than the other, but I always get people checking, and I can tell you right now, our ears are symmetrical on our head. They're at the same height. An owl has one ear lower so that he can pinpoint sounds much better than we can. It's what we call triangulation. Each ear, being at a different height, is hearing the sound at a different distance, just a little bit, but it's enough for them to figure out exactly where the sound's coming from. Sometimes you'll see an owl tilting his head back and forth. What he's doing is he's trying to equalize the triangle to pinpoint that noise. Now, if there was a foot of snow on the ground, an owl would actually be able to hear a mouse underneath that foot of snow, go flying down, pierce their talons through the snow, and come up with that mouse easily. That's how good their hearing is. Now, with those great tools, this guy can find any animal out there at nighttime in the dark. Now it's time to go in for the kill. Do you think this guy's going to fly down really fast and grab that mouse, or do you think he's going to sneak up on it? I heard someone say fast, and I heard most of you say sneak up. Yeah, he's going to sneak up on it. Most animals out at nighttime, rabbits, mice, they got big ears listening for danger. If they hear danger, they're going to head for cover. They don't want to be someone's dinner. So this guy has to be really quiet and sneak up on his prey. The way he does that is not by tiptoeing through the woods. He is a bird, he has to fly, but he's built for silence. When those tailends were, I didn't pass them around, they got back up here. Okay, when the tailends went around, you may have noticed how the owl leg had feathers. I know it felt like fur, but it was feathers, going all the way down to the toes, whereas the hawk's leg is very leathery. That helps buffer the wind so that they can fly quieter. Another thing is the way the wings are designed. This is a daytime hunter, the red-tailed hawk. I want you to listen to this wing. You hear it in the back? It's a pretty noisy wing. He could care less about being silent. He wants to get to his food before it sees him coming. Now the owl, this is a barred owl wing. Okay, it's not this. Not this one. Listen to this wing. You hear that in the back? No? How about in the front? No, it's built for silence. the shape of the wing, yeah, great window. But this guy here, the shape of the wing, the softness of the feathers, the design of the wing, the size of the wing compared to the size of the body allows him to flap it even slower. All of those things help him fly with silence that he can sneak up on his prey. Now, once he catches his prey, then he kills it with the talons, and then he eats it. And like all birds of prey, he does have that curved beak for ripping and tearing. But if it's small enough, let's say he catches a mouse about this big, okay, he doesn't have to rip it apart. He just grabs it, flips his head back, down it goes, the whole thing. Whatever he can't digest gets shoved into a little pocket next to his stomach, wadded up into a tight little ball. A couple hours later, up it comes and out it comes, what we call owl puke. No, that's not true. No, okay, we'll call it an owl pellet. Sounds a little better. This is actually one of his pellets. If you look closely, you'd be able to see all the little bones in there. And that's what this is, whatever he couldn't digest, fur and bones. It just gets compacted. If you tore this apart, you'd be able to figure out exactly what he ate by putting all the little tiny bones together. I think I see a jawbone in there. Yeah, there's some mouse. Now, I used to pass these around, and when I do, they end up looking like this. So I stopped passing those around. Instead, I will pass this around. You can look at it. Please do not open the bag. I don't want owl puke all over the floor. Now, what happened to this guy? Well, when he was young, and we know he was young because he still had all the downy feathers on his head, he probably just learned how to fly, was learning how to hunt. Mom and Dad forgot to teach him to look both ways before crossing the road. He never saw the car coming. He got hit, it broke its wing. Unfortunately, the red-tailed hawk, he broke his wing between two joints. This guy broke his wing right at the joint, right where it bends. Worst place for a bird to break the wing. The reason is because you can't pin the wing. The only thing you can do is fold it up, wrap it up, and pull for the vest. Now, the joint on this guy was actually shattered. The veterinarian and I actually had to open up the wing. We shaved out some of the broken bones because they're tiny little shards, and there wasn't much of the ball left, so we didn't have a lot of hope for it, but we were going to give him a chance. We wrapped it up, and we crossed our fingers. Anyone here ever have a broken bone? Yeah, you have a cast on it? How long was the cast on? About 6 weeks? Yeah, I've heard someone told me once he had it on for 6 months. It depends on how severely the break is, but rarely it's less than a month. With a bird, their bones are hollow. Okay, that allows them to be lightweight so that they can fly. If you're heavy, you don't get off the ground. Being hollow, they break easier, but they also heal quicker. His bone, a bird's bone, will heal in approximately 7 days. Now, we usually go 10 to 14 days. So with him, because of the severity of the break, we went a full 2 weeks. When we took the bandages off, that's when the rehab starts. That's when we start exercising the wing to get full motion out of it. We never got it open very far at all. So we took him back to the veterinarian. We did more x-rays, and we found that the joint was not there anymore. New bone had grown over the break. It calcified, as we call it, and basically it fused the bones shut. So this guy only has one wing that opens fully. Notice the one closest to me, it is still there, but it will not open. So this guy cannot fly. Birds need 2 whole wings fully extended to fly. That's why he cannot go back to the wild. His name is Shakespeare. He's about 5 or 6 years old. Are there any questions about this bird? Yes. Where's his mouth? Right there. See that beak? Try to get him to open that beak. Yes. Very good question. She asked, how can I tell the males from the females? We talked about the kestrel. We talked about how the kestrel shows color difference between male and female. Most birds of prey, they're the same colors between male and female. The only way you can tell is by size. Who do you think is larger, male or female? I'm hearing both. It's the female. With most animals, the male seems to be larger than the female, but with birds of prey, the female is about 1/3 larger than the male. That's true with most birds of prey, not all of them. They've been doing studies and found that with like screech owls and kestrels and your smaller birds of prey, it's hard to tell male from female by size. The only way to really do it is by blood work. But with most of your larger birds of prey, female's larger. She's the one who protects the young in the nest, and she has to be larger and stronger. Yes, ma'am?
Eagles are bigger than anybody.
Are these found around here? Yes, these are found around here. They're one of our more common owls, but they're also one of our least seen. And the reason is because their habitat, swamps and deep woods, which where I know I don't hang out much at nighttime. So that's where you will find them. They are one of the easiest owls to call in. Excuse me, waiting for me to do this phone. They're one of the easiest owls to call in. When you make their call, they will answer back. They're a very curious owl. We've done many owl prowls at Beaver Meadow and across western New York. Steve's helped me do some owl prowls before, and the one that we always seem to get to answer back, this guy. Okay, they are a very curious owl. Some people call him the who cooks for you owl because they make the call that sounds like it's who cooks for you all. And I'm going to put Steve on the spot now. He does an awesome bark owl song. That's the call that they make. They don't always do the entire call. I'll hear the wild ones and the captive ones in my backyard during the summer. Sometimes they just do part of that call. I've heard them just do the end part at times, do the if you're ever out in the woods at night, I know I do terrible. If you're ever out in the woods at night and you hear monkeys fighting in the trees, no, we do not have monkeys in the wild in western New York. What you're hearing is barred owls communicating with each other. I did hear once that scientists believe that the barred owl has the most vocalizations, variety of vocalizations than any owl out there. Last question, I'm going to bring out the next bird. What do I feed him? He gets mousicles and ratsicles. We actually, I think Steve mentioned this earlier, we have a supplier called SAS. They're in Jamestown, New York, other side of the state by New York City. And they raise rats and mice for the pet trade. They give their imperfect ones that just don't look right, maybe an ear was chewed off by another mouse. They bag them up and they donate them to rehabilitation centers and nonprofits. By donating, they just donate the cost of the mice, not the shipping. Shipping for 2 crates of mice is around $100, so it does get expensive. But at least we're getting the mice for free. So that's where we get our mice from. And that's what they eat. And we don't feed them to them frozen. We do defrost them the night before. Except through here. And I'm going to turn it back over to Steve.
Before I bring out the last bird, there's a difference between the talons and the way they hold the talons between a hawk, falcon, and an owl. A hawk and a falcon, they hold their feet this way. 3 front, 1 in the back. That's how they grab stuff. Unfortunately, the taxidermist who did this foot did not know the difference between a hawk and an owl.
I've never seen a real.
Like I said, 3 front, 1 back. An owl will do 2 front, 2 in the back. When they're on our fist, if you come up close, you will see they grab our fist. 2 front, 2 back. The reason they do that, if you're hunting at night, and it's hard to get your prey anyway, what do you think's better to grab something? This way or this way? This way. It forms like a net. They go in, grab it. So there's one thing that you got to be aware of, that those feet, even though that they were positioned that way, really should have been positioned 2 front, 2 back.
I was in a hurry.
This one, everybody, well, most people should be familiar with this bird. Do we have any Harry Potter fans?
This is Steve's bringing them out. This is a brand new bird. This is his first day out in public. We just got him this past spring. And he's only been in training for about a week and a half now. So that's why he's not cooperating as well as the other birds.
Paul said, he likes to give me the brats. He likes to take the easy ones. I take the easy.
Whoa. Go in there. It's in the big. Yeah, I want to go
What's
now.
wrong with her?
I want to go.
This is one that you can tell the difference.
Ah!
The males are
Oh,
much
he's
more
mad now.
white with some speckling. The immatures will look like the female. The female has a lot more dark speckling, so this is a female. What's wrong with her? Well, relax.
Yeah, I want to go now. Now?
What's wrong with her is Paul got a call from a gentleman who said, I need you to come here because I have one of them Canadian white winter snowy thing birds, owls in my bird barrel. And he's like, yeah, right. What's it look like? So he described him. He's like, it's not one of those birds. Yes, it's the white Canadian snowy owl thing. I've got it here. So Paul said, fine, I'll come over and take a look at it.
Granted, it was a 60-degree day, and they should have been long gone up north by then.
So he goes over to the burn barrel, peeks in, and sure enough, we have a white snowy owl. And after doing a full examination of the bird, it was found that it had the same problem as the hawk. The keel bone was damaged. So this owl has soft tissue damage and is a weak flyer, even though it looks like the way she's pumping her wings, she's fully flighted and everything, but she's a weak flyer. And what makes it even worse for this bird to be a weak flyer is, where does this bird live? What type of environment? Tundra. I heard it. Tundra. What don't you have in the tundra?
Trees.
Trees. So in order to get off the ground, you need to be very powerful and very strong to get off the ground and fly, because you have no help from a high perch to give you that lift that the red tail gets when it's up on its perch. So this is even more dangerous for this bird, or this type of bird, to have weak flight, because it lives on the tundra. It lives on the ground. It nests on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
This bird, as it lives in the tundra, it flies not very high either. It'll fly over the ground at about 4 feet, looking and hearing and listening for its food. Its favorite food? Well, what lives up in the tundra? Lemmings.
Here we go, right now.
Bird will eat about 1,600 lemmings in 1 year.
I want some
Lemmings. L-E-M-M-I-N-G-S. That's a little rodent.
No, not after the
The ones that they say that they mass migrate and drown in the water, which is a myth, and they don't do that. But this guy eats about 1,600 of those in a year. They're very good hunters. They hunt during the day. Unlike most owls that hunt during the night, they hunt during the day. One of the reasons why they migrate during the winter months down this way. Because up in the tundra, what happens during the sunlight during the winter? It goes away. You got 6 months of darkness up there. So they kind of move back down to where there's some daylight, where they're a little bit more comfortable hanging out during the day. Doesn't mean that they don't hunt at night, but they like to hunt during the day. They will migrate down this way. If it's a very severe winter, they will even migrate as far as the Gulf, down that far. Difference with this owl and the owl that, besides the behavior, the owl that Paul had, is its feathers. The owl that Paul had, the barred owl, you saw them touching his beak. We also like to scratch behind the ear. The barred owl loves getting scratched behind the ear. This feathery, the barred owl is much more feathery. It's like very soft. It kind of just get in there and you're like, oh, it's fun to scratch behind the ears. This owl almost has feathers that are like a cross between a hawk and an owl. They're very dense, they're very firm. Why would you think that? Keep warm. Keep warm. Absolutely. It's got a great Arctic coat, keeps it warm. You can see the mouth is open. It's panting, trying to cool off. She's also a little bit nervous, like you said, she's in training, but she's also panting to cool off, just like a dog. They don't have sweat glands. Keeps their feathers close to her body. That's hopefully trying to cool her off also. She may puff them up a little bit to try and let some of the heat out, but since she's a little nervous, she's going to keep them close to her body. If she were to puff them way out, sometimes you'll see a hawk on a perch in the middle of winter, and they're like fat. What they're doing is, if they really puff them out, they actually kind of curve in a little bit, and they form air pockets that helps keep them even warmer. Feathers are used more than just flight. Feathers are used for protection, used for warmth, used for cooling off. Another thing with this bird to cool off is you'll see it dive down into the snow, and you expect it to fly out with a mouse, and it's just sitting there. And it'll fly out and go back on the perch, and you're like, oh, I missed its mouse. Poor bird. No, what it was doing was cooling off. Their feet, they lose a lot of heat through their feet. That's one reason why they have a lot of feathers on their feet, but they lose heat through their feet. So he's going down the snow, cooling off his feet, which cools off the body, and then they'll fly back up to the perch and look around. One thing that we didn't tell you about, another difference between the eyesight. The owl. You heard it has a lot of rods and cones. Well, it has about, I think, 10 million more rods and cones than we do. Mainly more rods. Cones see color, rods black and white. Helps with the night vision. The kestrel, wherever you put the kestrel. The kestrel has such great eyesight it also sees in ultraviolet. When a mouse urinates, it'll urinate before it goes in its hole. It's very sanitary. The only problem is that urine shows up in ultraviolet light. So when the kestrel sees a bright spot of ultraviolet, that's when it'll come up, hover over that spot, and wait for the mouse to come home. The hawk sees in many, many colors. It has a lot more cones than it does rods. They can depict shades of brown that we could only imagine. Great eyesight, and as we said, great eyesight at night, but also hearing. The barn owl, which we have around here, the barn owl, has been videotaped in a barn with no night light, no nothing. There is no light in there, pitch black. It has been videotaped coming down, swooping down, not even looking as it's grabbing the mouse, looking back up to see what perch it's going to go to, and it does it strictly on sound alone.
Make sure to stop by our
The hearing is amazing.
birdhouses for $5.
People ask though,
Stop by the
all this noise,
birdhouses for $5.
doesn't that bother them? No, it doesn't. They can control kind of how much they're hearing or whatever. A sharp, 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 loud bang, yes, would bother them, but noise like this doesn't hurt their hearing any more than it would hurt us. Even though they have more sensitive hearing or better hearing than we. These guys have about three eggs on average. Sometimes they get up to 10 eggs, depending on how well the food is. And they have been known, the male and female, since they're on the ground, there's wolves, Arctic foxes, bear, whatever, they have been seen to defend their nest against a wolf.
Somehow we gotta get out of here.
They're very fierce, very protective of their area. Now for all you Harry Potter fans, I hate to disillusion you, owls are stupid. Sorry, it's true. It's true. I'm sorry. They're not wise old owls. It's a misnomer. It's a myth. They are fairly dumb. The reason that they are fairly dumb is they have a very small brain. When Paul was talking about that eye, how it grows, it's much bigger in the skull, and there's no room for muscle or anything to move the eye. where there's not a lot of room for brain either. So the brain inside here tells the owl a few basic things. Hunt to survive, breed to keep the species going, and protect yourself. Other than that, it's not telling it too much. So the owls that you see in the Harry Potter movie, there are 4 headlings. Because they are so dumb that they can't be trained very much. So there's one owl that just sits there and is very nice and can sit next to Harry. There's another owl that all it does is fly. That's all it knows it's trained to do is fly. And they all have their special job because that's about all they can learn. So owls are not wise old owls. They're just very efficient hunting, killing machines, and that's what their brain is made for. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there any other hawk, owl, falcon type bird local to this general area that is pure white besides?
Could be an albino. Could be an albino. There's been albino red-tails. Any species just about can be an albino, but there have been albino red-tailed hawks. So being that there are so many red-tails, it was probably a red-tailed hawk.
Why I asked, a friend of mine used to go to daily mass at the Catholic Church in Geneseo, and he was there one morning, and this absolutely snow-white bird, this is in nicer weather, it flew in an open window, sat on a crossbeam. After the consecration, it flew around and went out and never made a sound.
Depending on the size, it could also be a pigeon. Pigeons are pure white.
Well, no, it was
Big.
more this type. I mean,
vertebrate.
vertebrate.
Yeah, probably an albino red-tail.